There comes a time in every life when the weight of the world feels unbearable, when storms rise, when doubt whispers, and when the very ground beneath seems to shake. One may wonder, why now? Why this? Why me? Yet history has shown that those called to a greater purpose often walk through fire before they rise in glory. There was a man who stood before millions, not with wealth or power, but with a message that pierced through generations, a voice that carried across stadiums, cities, and nations, not seeking applause, but transformation. He did not chase fame, yet the world knew his name. He did not seek influence, yet leaders listened. He did not build his own kingdom, but countless lives were changed by the one he preached about. What made him different? What gave his words such power? And what does his life teach us today? Perhaps the answer lies not just in what he said, but in the fire he walked through to say it. There is a moment in life when the call comes, not in a loud voice, not in a dramatic display, but in a quiet stirring deep within. It does not force itself upon the heart, yet it refuses to be ignored. It disrupts comfort, unsettles routine, and awakens a sense that there is more. More to see, more to do, more to become. But this call does not come without a price. It demands movement, not just of the feet, but of the soul. It demands surrender, not of weakness, but of trust. It demands a willingness to leave behind the familiar and step into a journey that has no clear end. Many hear the call, but few answer, not because they do not desire it, but because they fear what it requires. The unknown is daunting. The path is often lonely, and the weight of the assignment can feel unbearable. Yet history has shown that those who dare to embrace it are the ones who leave an impact that cannot be erased. There was never a promise that purpose would come with ease. In fact, those who have walked in the fullness of their calling have often faced the greatest struggles. They have been misunderstood, rejected, and challenged at every turn. They have been tested in ways that seem beyond human endurance. But what separates those who shrink back from those who rise is not the absence of struggle, but the response to it. Some see obstacles as reasons to quit, while others see them as confirmations that they are on the right path. Some allow fear to silence them, while others use it as fuel to push forward. Some wait for conditions to be perfect, while others step out with nothing but faith and determination. The journey is never easy, but it was never meant to be. When a man is called beyond comfort, he will be stretched in ways he never imagined. He will be required to let go of things that once felt essential. He will be asked to walk away from places that once felt like home. He will be challenged to rise above opinions, to stand firm when everything around him shakes, and to believe even when nothing makes sense. The weight of the calling will test his endurance, but it will also reveal his strength. The fire will come not to destroy, but to refine. The struggle will arise not to break, but to build. And every challenge will be another step closer to the fulfillment of the assignment. Those who have changed the world did not do so from a place of convenience. They were not people who sought comfort, nor were they driven by the pursuit of ease. They were men and women who were willing to be uncomfortable, to be stretched, to be broken if necessary, for the sake of something greater than themselves. They were people who understood that the call was never about them to begin with. They knew that their lives were vessels, that their voices were instruments, that their influence was merely a tool in the hands of something far greater. They did not walk this path for personal gain, nor did they seek the approval of men. They answered the call not because it was easy, but because they could not do otherwise. The moment a man steps beyond comfort, he steps into transformation. He is no longer the same as he once was. His perspective shifts. His priorities change. What once seemed important now fades in comparison to the weight of the assignment before him. He no longer seeks what is temporary, but what is eternal. He no longer chases what satisfies for a moment, but what will outlive him for generations. He begins to see through different eyes, to move with different intent, to speak with different conviction. He is no longer moved by the opinions of those who do not understand, nor is he shaken by the opposition that comes against him. He knows that the call is greater than the struggle, that the purpose is worth the sacrifice, and that the impact is far beyond what he can see in the moment. It is not the easy road that leads to fulfillment. It is not the path of least resistance that produces the greatest impact. It is the willingness to step beyond comfort, to embrace the unknown, to endure the refining fire, and to stand unwavering in the midst of the storm. It is the decision to keep moving forward when everything says to turn back. It is the choice to trust even when nothing makes sense. It is the faith to believe that the one who calls is faithful, that the path ahead is not without purpose, and that every step, no matter how difficult, is leading to something greater. There is something powerful about words that are not merely spoken but lived. Words that do not just inform but transform. Words that are not empty echoes but carry the weight of conviction. The world is filled with voices, each competing for attention, each trying to shape minds, each seeking to leave an impression. But not all words carry the same weight. Not all voices have the ability to penetrate the depths of the human heart. Some words come and go, fading as quickly as they are spoken, but others remain, lingering long after they have been heard. These are the words that carry power. Not because they are eloquent, not because they are crafted with perfection, but because they come from a place of truth. They are the words that cannot be ignored, words that stir something deep within, words that demand a response. The power of an unshakable message is not found in the volume of the voice, but in the authority behind it. A message that carries true power does not need to be forced. It does not need to be defended. It stands on its own, unwavering, unyielding, unstoppable. It does not conform to the shifting opinions of culture, nor does it bow to the pressures of opposition. It remains the same yesterday, today, and forever. It is not a message built on human wisdom, nor is it shaped to fit the desires of the masses. It is a message that transcends generations, a message that does not lose its relevance, a message that continues to call, to convict, to transform. Those who carry such a message are not driven by applause, nor are they silenced by resistance. They speak not to please men, but to fulfill a purpose greater than themselves. They do not change their words to fit the times. They declare what has been true from the beginning. There is a reason why some voices rise above the noise of the world. It is not because they are the loudest. It is not because they are the most popular. It is because they carry something deeper than words. They speak from a place of experience, from a place of sacrifice, from a place of revelation. They do not speak of things they have merely heard about. They speak of what they have seen, what they have lived, what they know to be true. Their words are not theories, but testimonies. They do not merely instruct, they impart. Their message is not built on intellect alone, but on something that cannot be shaken, something that cannot be denied. And because of that, their words have the power to move people, to awaken souls, to stir something eternal within those who hear them. Such a message does not come without cost. To speak truth in a world that thrives on deception is to invite resistance. To stand firm in conviction when others compromise is to walk a lonely road. To carry a message that challenges the status quo is to face criticism, rejection, and sometimes even persecution. But the weight of the message is greater than the weight of opposition. Those who carry an unshakable message do not fear the cost because they understand its worth. They do not seek comfort because they know that purpose is often found in discomfort. They do not chase acceptance because they know that truth has never been embraced by the masses. They are not swayed by the opinions of the crowd, nor are they discouraged when they stand alone. Their eyes are fixed on something higher, something greater, something that cannot be taken away. The world does not need more empty words. It does not need voices that speak without conviction, nor messages that shift with the changing winds of society. It needs voices that stand firm, messages that remain unshaken, words that pierce through the darkness and bring light. It needs men and women who are not afraid to speak, who are not afraid to stand, who are not afraid to declare what is true even when it is unpopular. It needs voices that do not seek to entertain but to awaken, that do not seek to impress but to transform. The power of an unshakable message is not in how it is delivered, but in the truth it carries. And when truth is spoken with conviction, with authority, with a heart that burns with purpose, it cannot be ignored. It will go forth, it will accomplish its purpose, and it will leave an impact that cannot be erased. When a man steps into his purpose, he does not walk an easy road. The moment he chooses to stand for something greater than himself, opposition arises. It does not wait, it does not hesitate, it comes with force, with pressure, with resistance that seeks to shake him, to silence him, to make him question whether he should continue. This is not by accident. It is not coincidence. It is the reality of carrying something that disrupts the ordinary, something that challenges what is comfortable, something that threatens what darkness has long held in place. The weight of opposition is not proof of failure. It is confirmation of impact. It is a sign that what is being done is not small, not insignificant, not easily ignored. The presence of resistance does not mean that the path is wrong. It means that the path is necessary. Throughout history, every man who has carried a message of truth, every man who has stood for something unshakable, has faced opposition. Some were ridiculed, some were abandoned, some were persecuted, but none were left without resistance. It is a pattern that repeats itself, a reality that remains unchanged. The world has never welcomed truth with open arms. It has never celebrated those who refuse to conform. It has never made it easy for those who choose to walk a higher road, but this is the cost of carrying something that cannot be silenced. This is the price of standing in a place where others have chosen to sit. The moment a man decides that he will not be moved by fear, he becomes a threat to everything that thrives on deception, everything that feeds on complacency, everything that seeks to keep people blind and bound. Opposition does not always come in obvious forms. It is not always loud, not always direct. Sometimes it is subtle, disguised as doubt, as distraction, as discouragement. It comes in whispers that suggest turning back, in circumstances that make quitting seem reasonable, in moments where the weight of the battle feels heavier than the strength to continue. But those who make the greatest impact are not those who never face opposition. They are those who refuse to be stopped by it. They are the ones who understand that resistance is not the end, it is part of the process. It is the fire that refines, the wind that strengthens, the struggle that prepares. They are the ones who do not see obstacles as signs to stop, but as opportunities to rise. They do not retreat when the battle is fierce. They press forward, knowing that the greatest victories are on the other side of the greatest struggles. The truth is, opposition does not come against those who do nothing. It does not seek out those who remain silent, those who choose comfort over conviction, those who settle for what is easy rather than fight for what is right. It comes against those who are shifting something, who are awakening something, who are stepping into something that matters. It does not waste its energy on the complacent. It targets those who are making a difference. This is why the struggle intensifies the moment a man begins to step into his assignment. This is why resistance increases when progress is being made. It is not a sign to turn back. It is a sign to keep going. The greatest battles always surround the greatest breakthroughs. The fiercest storms always come before the clearest skies. And the heaviest opposition always rises against those who are closest to fulfilling their purpose. There is a choice that must be made in the face of resistance. A man can allow it to stop him, or he can let it strengthen him. He can let it push him back, or he can let it push him forward. He can see it as a reason to quit, or he can see it as evidence that what he is doing is necessary. The opposition will come, but it cannot win unless it is allowed to. Fear will whisper, but it cannot silence a man who refuses to listen. Struggles will arise, but they cannot break a man who understands their purpose. The battle is real, but so is the victory on the other side. Those who change the world do not do so because they never faced resistance. They do so because they refuse to let it stop them. There is a misconception that influence is measured by power, by status, by the number of people who recognize a name or follow a voice. The world looks at influence as something to be gained, something to be achieved, something that elevates a person above others. But true influence is not found in the pursuit of recognition. It is found in the posture of humility. It is not in the desire to be served, but in the willingness to serve. It is not in the need to be admired, but in the commitment to remain faithful regardless of whether anyone is watching. The greatest impact is not made by those who seek to be great, but by those who are willing to become small, to surrender their own desires, to lay down their own ambitions for something greater than themselves. Influence is not a platform. It is a responsibility. It is not a privilege. It is a calling. And those who carry it well are not those who demand attention, but those who remain steadfast in the assignment given to them. The temptation of influence is to believe that it exists for personal benefit, that once it is attained, it should be used to build a name, to secure a legacy, to establish a position that cannot be shaken. But influence is never about the one who carries it. It is about the lives it is meant to reach. It is about the burdens it is meant to lift, the hearts it is meant to strengthen, the change it is meant to bring. Those who wield influence with humility do not see it as something to be held on to, but as something to be poured out. They understand that their voice is not for their own glory, that their position is not for their own gain, that their authority is not for their own comfort. They recognize that influence is not an end, but a means to serve, to uplift, to lead with integrity. The weight of influence is not in how much is gained, but in how much is given. It is not in the applause that follows a person, but in the quiet sacrifices made when no one is looking. It is not in the number of people who recognize a name, but in the number of lives changed because of it. The world measures influence by visibility, by numbers, by reach. But true influence is measured in faithfulness, in obedience, in consistency. It is not about how high a person rises, but about how deeply they are rooted. It is not about how many stand to applaud, but about how many are impacted in ways that cannot be counted. The most powerful influence is often unseen, unnoticed, uncelebrated. It is found in the quiet acts of service, in the unseen moments of sacrifice, in the steadfast commitment to the call, regardless of whether recognition comes. The greatest leaders have always been those who understood that influence is not about control, but about stewardship. They did not see their position as something to protect, but as something to use for the benefit of others. They did not cling to power, they laid it down. They did not seek titles, they sought to make a difference. They did not operate from a place of pride, but from a place of surrender. And because of that, their influence did not fade when their time ended. It did not disappear when they were no longer present. It continued, it multiplied, it lived on in the lives they touched, in the hearts they inspired, in the truths they imparted. Influence that is built on humility lasts beyond a lifetime because it was never about the individual to begin with. Many desire influence, but few are willing to carry it with humility. Many seek to lead, but few are willing to serve. Many want to be recognized, but few are willing to remain unseen if that is what the assignment requires. But those who understand the weight of true influence do not chase what is temporary. They do not compromise for the sake of recognition. They do not measure their worth by how many know their name, but by how many are transformed because of their obedience. They do not fear losing their position because they know that their purpose is not found in the platform, but in the calling. They walk with confidence, not in their own abilities, but in the one who entrusted them with the responsibility. They move with certainty, not because they seek greatness, but because they know that true greatness is found in humility, in surrender, in remaining faithful even when no one is watching. Faith is not a passive belief, not a quiet agreement with what is comfortable, not a mere acknowledgement of what is easy to accept. Faith is movement. Faith is action. Faith is the force that compels a man to step forward when everything in front of him suggests he should turn back. It is the unwavering conviction that what is unseen is more real than what is visible, that what is promised is more certain than what is presently experienced. Faith does not ask for proof before it moves. It moves because it knows the proof will come. It does not wait for conditions to be favorable before stepping forward. It steps forward, knowing that the path will be made clear along the way. Those who have shaped history, who have shifted nations, who have carried messages that transform generations, were not those who waited for assurance in the natural. They were those who moved with certainty in the unseen, those who walked when there was no visible road, those who believed when there was no tangible evidence to hold on to. Faith that moves nations is not ordinary faith. It is not the kind that only believes when the outcome is guaranteed, not the kind that only stands when there is no opposition, not the kind that is swayed by circumstances or controlled by fear. It is a faith that stands firm in the face of uncertainty, a faith that does not shrink back when challenges arise, a faith that continues forward even when the path is lined with obstacles. It is the kind of faith that causes a man to declare what will be, even when everything around him says otherwise. It is the kind of faith that allows a man to see beyond the moment, beyond the struggle, beyond the impossibility. It is the kind of faith that does not settle for what is, but presses forward to what should be. This is the faith that has led movements, the faith that has sparked revivals, the faith that has transformed entire nations. But this kind of faith is not without cost. It does not come without resistance, without trials, without moments where everything in the natural says it is foolish to continue. It is tested in the fire, refined in the struggle, proven in the moments where giving up seems like the logical choice. It is the faith that must stand when others walk away, the faith that must believe when nothing is changing, the faith that must endure when there is no immediate evidence of victory. Many admire the results of great faith, but few are willing to endure the process required to develop it. It is one thing to desire the impact that comes from unwavering faith, but it is another thing entirely to walk through the refining that strengthens it. Faith that moves nations is not faith that was never challenged. It is faith that has been stretched, faith that has been tested, faith that has stood in the fire and come out stronger. Faith is not comfortable, and it does not operate within the bounds of human reasoning. It asks for trust before the outcome is seen, for obedience before the results are guaranteed. It requires a man to build when there is no sign of rain, to step forward when there is no visible ground, to speak when there is no indication that anyone will listen. This kind of faith looks like foolishness to the world, but it is the kind of faith that history remembers. It is the faith that causes walls to fall, that causes seas to part, that causes the impossible to become reality. It is not faith in human ability, not faith in personal strength, not faith in temporary circumstances. It is faith in something greater, something eternal, something that does not fail. And it is this kind of faith that has the power to shift not just individuals, not just communities, but entire nations. The world does not change by those who believe only when it is easy. It is changed by those who refuse to let what they see dictate what they believe. It is changed by those who stand on promises even when circumstances contradict them. It is changed by those who do not wait for the approval of others before stepping forward. Those who have carried a faith that moved nations did not wait for conditions to be perfect. They moved when the call came. They spoke when the words burned within them. They stood when everything around them told them to sit. And because they refused to shrink back, their faith did not just impact their own lives. It shifted the course of history. It awakened hearts, stirred souls, and ignited something that could not be extinguished. This is the faith that does not die with the one who carries it. This is the faith that continues, the faith that multiplies, the faith that leaves a mark that cannot be erased. Legacy is not measured by the length of life, but by the impact left behind. It is not about the number of years a man walks the earth, but about what remains after he is gone. Many chase achievements, wealth, and recognition, believing that these are the things that define a lasting legacy. But true legacy is not found in titles, not found in possessions, not found in the fleeting applause of the world. It is found in the lives that have been touched, in the truths that have been planted, in the foundations that have been built for generations to come. A legacy that endures is not made of material success. It is made of influence that stretches beyond a single lifetime. It is built not in a moment, but in the daily choices to live with purpose, to stand for something greater, to invest in what will outlive the one who carries it. Every person leaves something behind, whether they intend to or not. Some leave a legacy of compromise, a legacy of missed opportunities, a legacy of a life that conformed to what was easy instead of what was right. Others leave a legacy of impact, a legacy of sacrifice, a legacy of unwavering commitment to a purpose that could not be shaken. The difference is not in the circumstances they faced, not in the challenges they endured, not in the size of the platform they stood on. The difference is in the choices they made. Every decision either builds or weakens a legacy. Every moment is either an investment in something eternal or a waste of what was entrusted. A legacy worth remembering is not built by accident. It is built with intention, with perseverance, with the understanding that life is not about what is gained, but about what is given. The weight of legacy is not in what a person accomplishes for themselves, but in what they leave for others. It is not about personal success, but about what is deposited into the next generation. A man who lives only for himself may achieve much, but his impact dies with him. A man who pours into others, who invests in lives, who imparts wisdom and truth, creates something that continues long after he is gone. The greatest legacies are not built in isolation. They are built through people, through relationships, through the willingness to lift others higher than oneself. The question is never how much a person can accomplish in their lifetime. The question is how much of what they have will continue beyond their lifetime. Those who understand this do not measure their success by personal gain, but by the multiplication of what they have imparted. Legacy requires consistency. It is not built in grand moments. not built in temporary bursts of effort, not built in isolated acts of greatness. It is built in the unseen moments, in the daily commitment to remain steadfast, in the quiet decisions to stay faithful even when no one is watching. Many desire to leave a mark, but few are willing to walk the road required to build something that lasts. It is not the loudest voices that leave the greatest impact. It is the most faithful. It is not the ones who chase recognition, but the ones who remain unwavering in their purpose. Legacy is not a single event, but a lifetime of choices that align with a purpose greater than oneself. It is not about how a person starts, not about how they are perceived, not about what they have accumulated. It is about how they have lived, how they have poured into others, how they have fulfilled the calling placed upon their lives. The reality of legacy is that it is not determined at the end of life. It is built in the process of living. Every day is either strengthening or weakening the impact that will remain. Every action is either contributing to something lasting or fading into nothingness. Those who leave a legacy worth remembering do not wait until the end to consider what they will leave behind. They live each day with the awareness that their time is limited, that their choices matter, that their influence is shaping something beyond themselves. They do not waste time on what is meaningless. They do not invest in what will not endure. They set their eyes on what is eternal, on what will continue long after their voice has gone silent. And because of that, their legacy does not die when they do. It continues, it multiplies, it remains, leaving an imprint on the world that cannot be erased.